They called her Omega like it was a sentence. She wore it like a crown. Every alpha who humiliated her kneels to her now. She built her empire from the ruins of their contempt. And the bond chose him, the disgraced beta with the cursed touch, the man whose love has only ever ended in graves. She survived everything they threw at her. She does not know if she can survive him. Chapter 1, The Queen Does Not Kneel. Her name had been Ren Calloway when she was Omega. That was 6 years ago. 6 years was long enough to build 3 trading companies, acquire territorial rights in 4 pack zones, and employ 400 wolves who had once considered themselves above her. She no longer went by Omega. She no longer went by Ren either. That name belonged to a girl who had sat in the dirt of the Ashevale Pack courtyard while 3 alpha sons laughed above her and told her she was nothing, that she would always be nothing, that even the wolves could smell the nothing on her. The wolves could smell her now. She made sure of it. She went by Queen, not because she ruled a territory in the traditional sense. She had no pack throne, no alpha claim, no ancestral land. She ruled something more durable than land. She ruled the commerce that every pack in the Northern Coalition depended on. 17 packs needed her trading routes. 12 used her communications network. 6 of their alphas had personally come to her offices in Verith City in the last year to negotiate contracts on terms she set. Not one of them had laughed. She was in the East boardroom on a Thursday when her chief of operations, a wolf named Cass who had been with her since year 2, knocked and entered with a specific expression that meant something had arrived that he did not know how to categorize. "There's a wolf at the gate," Cass said. "He's been there since 6 this morning. He won't come in. He won't leave. He says he has a proposition." "There are always wolves at the gate," she said, without looking up from the contracts. "This one is," Cass paused, "different." Something in the pause made her look up. "Different how?" she said. "He arrived with nothing," Cass said. "No car, no pack insignia, no documentation. He walked out of the forest at dawn and sat down outside the gate on the ground and has been there since. He hasn't asked for anything. He's just waiting." She set down her pen. 6 years of building had given her a precise instrument for reading situations. The same instrument she'd developed as Omega, as the wolf nobody watched, as the invisible one who had learned that invisibility was not powerlessness if you used it correctly. She read situations the way architects read structures, looking for the load-bearing elements, the stress points, the place where something was about to give. A wolf who walked out of the forest alone at dawn, sat in the dirt, and waited without asking. She knew that specific patience. She had performed it herself years ago in a different context. "Show him in," she said. "He won't come in," Cass said. "I asked. He says if you want to meet him, you come to him." Silence. Cass had the expression of someone waiting to be told this was unacceptable. Instead, she pushed back her chair. "Then I'll go to him," she said. He was exactly as described, sitting on the ground outside her gate with his back against the stone pillar. Long legs stretched before him, face tipped up toward the morning sky. He was large in the way of wolves who had been built for something specific. Not elegantly large, structurally large. The kind of frame that suggested the body had been designed around a purpose and had been used hard for years. He was also, she noted, in the specific state of someone who had recently lost everything. Not destitution. He was clean, his clothing was intact. But the particular stripped quality of a person who had put down every non-essential thing because carrying non-essentials was a luxury for people with somewhere to be. He turned his head when he heard her steps and looked at her. His eyes were dark brown, the color of old wood, and they were doing what almost nobody's eyes did when they looked at her. Not calculating, not performing respect, not managing the encounter. They were simply looking. The specific, honest attention of someone with nothing left to protect. The bond activated in the base of her skull like a door slamming open. She stopped walking. He looked at her for one more second. Then he looked away. Deliberately, she understood, giving her room to process what had just happened. "You're the queen," he said. His voice was low and even. "Yes," she said. "I'm Rowan Vex," he said, "former beta of the Caro Pack. I was stripped of my rank 14 months ago. I have no pack, no territory, no resources. I have one skill that still has value and a proposition for you. He paused. I understand if you say no. What's the proposition? She said. I know where Ashvale is moving its assets, he said. I know their route, their timeline, and the vulnerability in their transfer operation. I know this because I spent 2 years working in their eastern territories before I was cast out of Cairo, and I have information they don't know I have. He looked at her steadily. You've been trying to break Ashvale's eastern monopoly for 3 years. I can give you the information you need to do it in 30 days. She looked at him. What do you want in return? She said. Work, he said. Not charity. Work I'm worth. I'm a strategist. I was the best beta in the Northern Coalition for 6 years before I was stripped. I want to prove that's still true. Why come to me? He looked up at her from the ground. Because you built an empire after they made you sit in the dirt, he said, and I thought you might understand what it means to have something to prove. She stood in the morning light outside her gate with the bond running like a current through everything, and the specific recognition of someone who had just looked into a mirror they hadn't known existed. Get up, she said. Come inside. Tell me everything about Ashvale. He stood. He was taller than she'd realized. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, she said. I haven't decided anything. She walked back through the gate. He followed. The bond between them stretched, like something that had been waiting a very long time to finally be used. Chapter 2. The Curse He Carries. She found out about the curse on day 3. Not from him. She had a researcher, a meticulous wolf named Pierre, who could find information in archives that had been deliberately buried, and she had sent Pierre after Rowan Vex the same day she'd let him through the gate, because she had not survived 6 years of building by trusting beautiful propositions without verifying them. Pierre came to her on the morning of day 3 with a folder and an expression. Everything he told you checks out, Pierre said. The Cairo Beta ranking, the Ashvale intelligence, the Eastern operations, all accurate. But, she said, there's a reason he was stripped, Pierre said. He opened the folder. His mate died 18 months ago. Before that, 2 years before that, a wolf he was in a serious relationship with died. Before that, he paused. The pack record goes back 8 years. 3 women, 3 deaths. None of them natural causes. Territorial violence, an accident, a disease that shouldn't have been fatal. The Cairo Council call it a curse. They stripped his rank on the grounds that he was. Pierre's discomfort was visible. Toxic to those closest to him. That anyone he bonded to died. She sat with this. The council believed it, she said. The Alpha of Cairo believed it, Pierre said. He lost his own sister to the second death. He was not rational about it. Is it real? She said. The curse. Pierre was quiet for a moment. I don't know, he said. 3 deaths in 8 years with a connection to one wolf is statistically unusual. Whether that's supernatural or tragic coincidence, or the specific violence that surrounds betas in high-conflict territories. He stopped. I don't know. What I know is that he believes it. He told you? She said. No, but I found his personal record from before he left Cairo. He requested to be stripped voluntarily 6 months before the council did it. He asked them to take his rank. They refused. Then after the 3rd death, they did it anyway. Pierre looked at her steadily. He tried to remove himself before they removed him. She thought about the man sitting in the dirt outside her gate, the stripped quality, the nothing left to protect. She thought about the bond, which had not asked her opinion and had not considered the circumstances, and had made its recognition known with the complete indifference of biology to human complications. Send him in, she said. He came into her office with the same quality he'd had outside the gate, present, unhurried, no performance. He sat in the chair across from her and looked at her with the old wood eyes and waited. Tell me about the curse, she said. Something moved in his face. Not surprise. He had been expecting this, she understood. The specific brace of someone who has been waiting for a conversation they cannot avoid. You found the Caro records, he said. Yes. He looked at the window. A long pause. 3 women, he said. 8 years. I don't know if it's real. I know that the pattern is real. I know that I tried to stop it by removing myself before the council did. He looked back at her. I know that I have not, he stopped, found different words. I have not let myself be close to anyone in 14 months, and I do not intend to. And the bond, she said. His jaw tightened. I know, he said. You felt it. The moment you came through the gate, he said. I felt it before I saw your face. He held her gaze. I want you to understand that I am not going to act on it. I came here for work. I came here because I have something to offer and somewhere to offer it. I did not come here to... He stopped again. I am not going to be responsible for another woman's death. The office was very quiet. I'm not easy to kill, she said. Something happened at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, too painful for that. The ghost of one. I know your history, he said. I know what you survived in Asheville. I know what you built after. A pause. That's not the point. What is the point? She said. The point is that the 3 women who died were not easy to kill either, he said. The point is that the curse, if it's real, if it's connected to me, doesn't care about strength. It doesn't care about empires. It just... He stopped. His hands on his knees were very still. I watched them die, all 3 of them, and I would rather spend the rest of my life alone than watch that again. She looked at him across the desk. The bond ran between them like a river between 2 banks that had decided not to let it through. Stay, she said. Work. The Asheville intelligence is valuable, and so are you. Nothing else needs to be decided today. He looked at her. You're not afraid, he said. I'm terrified, she said. But I learned a long time ago that being terrified is not a reason to stop moving. It's just information. Chapter 3. What they built in the in-between. He stayed. She gave him the Asheville problem, and he dismantled it in 11 days. Not just the intelligence he'd brought, he rebuilt her entire Eastern strategy from the foundation, identified 3 vulnerabilities in her own operation that she hadn't known existed, and presented the revised plan with the specific economy of someone who had been doing this at the highest level and hadn't lost the skill, only the rank. She watched him work the way she'd watched everything that came through her operation, analytically, looking for the load-bearing elements. What she found was a mind that worked the way hers did, from first principles rather than convention, that saw the shape of systems rather than the surface of them. He was not the best beta in the Northern Coalition by reputation. He was the best beta she'd ever seen by observation. She told him this on day 14, which she recognized was a mistake the moment she said it because of what it did to his face. Not pride. He was past performing pride. Something more unguarded than that. The expression of a person receiving something they had stopped expecting. Thank you, he said. Quiet. Real. It's an assessment, she said, not a gift. I know, he said. It landed like one anyway. She understood that. She had spent 6 years building things that were accessible, provable, quantifiable, undeniable. She had done it specifically so that nobody could take the value away from her again. She understood what it meant to have your value confirmed by someone who was not performing the confirmation. The bond was a constant frequency between them. She had decided, with the particular discipline she developed for managing things that could not be resolved immediately, to treat it as information rather than instruction. It was there. It was real. It had no plan attached to it that required her participation today. He had made his position clear. He was not going to act on it. She respected this the way she respected every boundary that was stated plainly and honestly, which was completely. She also watched him. Not with calculation, something older than calculation. The specific attention of a person who has been alone long enough that another person's presence in the room has become notable. He moved through her offices with a quietness that had nothing shy in it, spoke when he had something to say, and was silent when he didn't, and treated every person on her staff with the same level of attention, regardless of rank. This last detail was the one that undid her in the way that small things always undid her faster than large ones. She had been ranked lowest. She knew exactly what it felt like to be treated according to rank rather than according to person. And she had built an organization that, as much as she could enforce it, did not operate that way. She had been watching for years to see whether the principle held under pressure. Rowan Vex reinforced it without being asked, without knowing she was watching, without any strategic reason to do so. He did it because it was how he treated people. On day 21, she found him in the East Archive at midnight, not working, simply sitting with a file in his hands that he wasn't reading. She almost didn't say anything. Then she sat down across from him because she was the queen, and she had learned that avoidance was a strategy for people who had somewhere else to be. "What is it?" she said. He looked up. He didn't pretend he hadn't been sitting in the dark with a file he wasn't reading. "The date," he said. She waited. 18 months ago today," he said. "Lisa, my mate." He set the file down. She was extraordinary. She deserved better than me, and she chose me anyway, and He stopped. "I found her." The weight in those two words. "I'm sorry," she said. "I keep thinking about the curse," he said. "Whether it's me specifically or whether it's the bond. Whether anyone I care about enough is at risk, or whether it's specifically the ones the bond." He looked at her. "I don't know which is worse." She looked at him across the archive table. "Have you ever considered," she said carefully, "that the curse might not be about you at all? That it might be about them? About the specific threat that comes to the people closest to a beta of your ability in a high-conflict territory?" He was very still. "Betas are targets," she said. "Not alphas. Alphas are expected and guarded. Betas are the mechanism, the strategist, the one who actually executes the alpha's power. Anyone who wants to destabilize an alpha goes for the beta first." She held his gaze. 3 deaths in 8 years in 2 of the most contested territories in the North. In women connected to the most effective beta in the coalition. She paused. "That doesn't sound like a curse to me. It sounds like a pattern." He stared at her. "I've been calling it a curse for 8 years, he said. "I know," she said. "It's a cleaner story than the alternative." "The alternative being that someone killed them?" he said. "The alternative being that someone killed them," she confirmed. The archive was very quiet. "If you're right," he said slowly, "then I've been carrying guilt for 8 years for a crime I didn't commit." "And if I'm wrong," she said, "we find out before it matters." He looked at her. "You're not afraid of being wrong," he said. "I'm afraid of being wrong all the time," she said. "I've built everything on decisions with incomplete information. Fear of being wrong is a luxury I gave up in year 1. He looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "Help me find out." Chapter 4. The Pattern in the Dark. They looked for the pattern together. It took 3 weeks, peers, archival skills, and 2 contacts in the Caro territory who owed Ren favors she had been saving for exactly this kind of excavation. The pattern, once visible, was unmistakable. A single operative, not a wolf, a human contractor who worked across pack territories as a cleaner, the kind of person packs use for problems they didn't want traced back to wolf politics. He had been active in Caro territory for 9 years. He had been present, peer established through cross-referencing location records, within 3 days of each death. He worked for the Ashvale Alpha. Ren sat with this for 24 hours before she told Rowan. Not because she was protecting him. She had decided a long time ago that protection without consent was condescension wearing a kind face. She sat with it because she was running the full implication, and it was larger than she'd expected. Ashvale had not just been pursuing a commercial monopoly. They had been systematically removing the people who threatened it. Rowan's effectiveness as Beta had been a strategic threat, and they had answered it by going for the people he loved until the grief broke him, and the Caro Alpha, grief maddened after his sister's death, did the rest of their work for them. They had broken him with a story he'd told himself. She told him on a Tuesday evening in her office, with the full documentation in front of him. He read it in silence. She watched his face move through it, the careful, controlled processing of someone who had learned to manage enormous things quietly, the composure holding, and then, at the page with the location cross-references, cracking. Not dramatically, the specific quiet crack of something that had been load-bearing for 8 years, breaking along a line that was grief and relief and rage in equal measure. She did not say anything. She had learned that the worst thing you could do with the first moment of a real thing was try to manage it. After a long time, he set the documents down. 8 years, he said. His voice was rough. Yes, she said. I left Caro. I gave up everything. He stopped. I stopped letting anyone close for 14 months because I thought I was. I know, she said. They used my grief to finish the job, he said. Yes, he looked at her. You are the target now, he said. If they know about the bond, and they will know, they always know, you're the next person on that list. I know, she said. I've been building a response to that since day 3. He stared at her. Day 3, he said. When Pierre found the pattern, she said, I didn't know the origin yet, but I knew the structure and I started building the counter. You didn't tell me, he said. You didn't tell me, he said. You weren't ready to hear the origin yet, she said. And I needed 3 more weeks of information before the counter was solid. He looked at her with the old wood eyes. You were protecting me, he said. I was giving you time, she said. There's a difference. A long moment. What's the counter, he said. She turned the documents over and showed him the plan she'd been building for 21 days. He read it. His expression changed. The grief and the rage finding a channel, the strategist surfacing, the Beta who had been the best in the coalition remembering what he was. This is good, he said. I know, she said. It's better with 2, he said. I know that too, she said. He looked up from the plan. Ren, he said, her old name in his mouth, not as a diminishment, as the name of a person he was seeing fully, the before and the after together. Yes, she said. I've been afraid for 8 years, he said, of what I was, of what I caused, and you just. He stopped. In 3 weeks you dismantled 8 years. The evidence dismantled it, she said. I just found the evidence. No, he said quietly. You looked for it. Nobody else looked. Nobody else thought to look. His voice was careful and very direct. That's not the evidence. That's you. She held his gaze. The bond between them was very present and very patient. Finish reading the plan, she said. We'll talk about the rest when Ashvale is handled. He smiled. The first real one she'd seen from him. Not the ghost of one, the full thing, and it rearranged his entire face into something she was going to need time to recalibrate to. Yes, Queen, he said. Chapter 5. The Reckoning. They moved on Ashvale's operation on a Friday. Not violently. Violence was the tool of people who hadn't thought far enough ahead. Ren had spent 6 years learning that the most devastating thing you could do to a power structure was remove its foundations quietly, from underneath, so that it was already falling before anyone knew to brace. Rowan knew where every load-bearing element was. She knew how to remove them. Together they were extraordinary. She watched it from the operations room. The information moving through her network, the Asheville routes collapsing one by one as the documentation that justified their monopoly was challenged simultaneously at 4 different arbitration points. The Eastern assets frozen pending investigation. The contractor's employment records surfacing in 3 different PAC archives where it had been buried. The Asheville Alpha came to her offices 2 days later. He was not the first Alpha to come through her door, but he was the first to come with a specific expression of a man who understood that the thing he was standing in front of was larger than he had known and had been larger for longer than he'd realized. She received him in the boardroom. Rowan stood at her right, not as a display of force, as a statement of fact. This is what I have built. This is who stands here now. The Asheville Alpha looked at Rowan and then looked at Wren. The contractor, she said, you'll give me his full record and his full commission history, or I release everything I have to the Northern Council this afternoon. The commercial case against Asheville will proceed regardless. This is about whether you walk out of here with a criminal record attached to it. He gave her the record. After he left, she stood at the boardroom window and let herself feel it, the full weight of it. Not triumph exactly, something more complete. The specific satisfaction of a thing that had been wrong for a very long time being made right. Not perfectly, not without cost, but right. Rowan stood beside her. Is it enough? He said. It's a start, she said. The council investigation will take months. The contractor will be found. The full picture will take time. She paused. But yes, it's enough for today. He was quiet for a moment. I want to go back to Caro, he said. When it's done, when the full record is established, I want the Alpha to see it. For the rank, she said. Not the rank, he said. For Lisa, for the others. I want them to know what actually happened. She looked at him. I'll come with you, she said. He turned. You don't have to do that, he said. I know, she said. I've been coming to things I don't have to come to for 6 years. It's how I built this. He looked at her for a long moment. The bond, he said. Not a question, not a statement, something in between, the word itself as a full sentence. Yes, she said. I'm not afraid of it anymore, he said. I want you to know that. I was afraid of it because I thought I was the danger. I'm not. I was the target, and the people around me were the target. And now, he exhaled, now I'm standing in your boardroom, and you're the most protected person in the Northern Coalition, and I am, he stopped. What? She said. I am completely in love with you, he said. That's new information. I'm giving it to you directly because I think you prefer direct information. She looked at him. I do prefer direct information, she said. Good, he said. I've been in love with you since day 14, she said. When you told me I'd given you something and then corrected it to assessment, and I watched you receive the correction with complete grace. He stared at her. Day 14, he said. I've had a lot of practice at not acting on things until the timing is right, she said. He laughed, sudden and real, and the boardroom held it like it had been waiting for the sound. She crossed to him. He met her halfway, not because she had moved first, but because that was the only distance either of them could manage. She kissed him in the boardroom, where 6 months ago the Asheville Alpha had come to intimidate her, and every Alpha before him had come to negotiate, and not one of them had understood what they were negotiating with. He kissed her back with both hands on her face, and the specific tenderness of a man who had been afraid to touch anything for 8 years, and had decided, with complete information and full eyes, to stop being afraid. Her wolf went quiet, not the waiting quiet of something in suspension, the settled quiet of something that has arrived. Chapter 6. Caro. They went to Caro in November. The Alpha received them in the Great Hall, an older wolf, gray at his temples, carrying the specific weight of a man who had made a decision in grief that he had lived with for 14 months and was now in this room, understanding the full shape of what that decision had cost. Rowan presented the documentation, every piece, the contractor's record, the commission history, the connection to Ashevale, the cross-reference locations, the pattern that had been visible in the archive all along for anyone who thought to look for a human operative rather than a supernatural cause. The Alpha read it in silence. He read it for a long time. When he finished, he looked at Rowan. "I stripped your rank because I needed somewhere to put the grief," he said. There was nothing defended in his voice, just the flat, honest statement of a man doing a very difficult accounting. "My sister was dead, and you were there, and the pattern was there, and it was—" He stopped. "I know," Rowan said. "I should have looked harder," the Alpha said. "You were grieving," Rowan said. "I should have looked harder before you did." The two men sat with that for a moment. "The rank," the Alpha said. "I don't want it back," Rowan said. "I'm not Caro Beta anymore. I work for the Queen." He glanced at Wren, not for permission, in acknowledgement. "I want the record corrected. For Lysa. For the others. I want it on record what actually happened to them." The Alpha nodded. "Done," he said. He looked at Wren. "He speaks of you the way he used to speak of this pack." A pause. "I'm glad something has that from him." Wren looked at the Alpha and thought about grief, and about the decisions it drove, and about the specific courage of a man who was sitting across from the person he'd wronged, and saying so without being asked. "Take care of your people," she said. "That's the only thing." "Yes," he said. On the drive back to Varath City, Rowan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I forgot what it felt like to be known by a pack." "You're known by mine," she said. He turned to look at her. "Yours doesn't have a pack structure," he said. "Not a traditional one," she said. 400 wolves who chose to be here, who built something together, who look out for each other." She glanced at him. "If that's not a pack, I don't know what is." He was quiet again. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes," she said. "When did you stop thinking of yourself as Omega?" She drove for a moment. "I never stopped," she said. "I just stopped letting them use it as a ceiling. Omega is not a limitation. It's a position they assigned me because they needed someone to be beneath them, and I decided I'd rather build something none of them could reach. And now? And now I employ 6 of the Alphas who put me there," she said, "and every one of them calls me Queen without being asked." He was quiet for a moment. "I called you Queen the first day," he said. "No," she said. "The first day you called me the Queen. There's a difference." He was quiet, processing. "The first is a title," he said. "The second is a person," she said. "Yes." He reached across the console and took her hand. She drove one-handed through the dark of the northern forest road with her empire behind her and the bond steady between them like a note held perfectly, and thought, "I built this from nothing, from contempt and dirt and the specific cruelty of people who needed someone beneath them. I built it alone. This part I am not building alone. This part is better." Epilogue. 1 year after the gate. The boardroom had been repainted, not because it needed it, because Rowan had mentioned once, in passing, that the gray was the color of Caro's council room, and she had noted this and done it without comment, and he had walked in 6 months later to find the walls, the dark green of the forest, at the eastern edge of her territory, and had stood there for a moment without speaking. "You didn't have to do that," he'd said. "I know," she'd said. He'd kissed her in the repainted boardroom, and she'd let him, and it had been the best boardroom meeting she'd ever had. The investigation into the Ashevale contractor had concluded in September. The full commission record had been submitted to the Northern Council. The contractor was in custody. The Ashevale Alpha had been brought before the council tribunal, and the outcome was still pending, but the evidence was, as Rowan had said the first time he read the full documentation, unignorable. Lisa and the others had been formally exonerated from the narrative that had killed them twice, once in life and once in the story that had blamed their deaths on the man who had loved them. The Caro record was corrected. Their names were cleared. Rowan had stood in the Caro Memorial Grove and not said anything for a very long time, and Wren had stood beside him and not said anything either. And afterward he had taken her hand and held it the entire drive back, and that had been enough. He ran her Eastern operations. He was the best person for it, and they both knew it. And they had stopped pretending the professional and the personal were separate categories because they weren't, and never had been, and the pretense had been exhausting. Cass had taken 3 weeks to stop looking nervous when they were in the same room together, and then had relaxed completely, and now referred to Rowan as the other boss, which Rowan found secretly gratifying, and she found exactly as amusing as it deserved. She was in the East boardroom, green walls, morning light, when he came in with coffee and the day's briefing documents, and sat across from her with the ease of someone who had been doing this for a year and intended to do it for considerably longer. Northern Council sent the preliminary findings on Ashevale, he said. It's good. How good, she said. The Eastern monopoly is dissolved, pending reallocation. They're recommending our trading network as the primary route. He looked up. That's everything you've been building toward for 3 years. She held that for a moment. All right, she said. He raised an eyebrow. All right, he said. You've just achieved the central commercial objective of your empire, and your response is, all right? What do you want me to say? She said. I want you to let yourself have it for 30 seconds before you move to the next thing, he said. She looked at him. She thought about the dirt in the Ashevale Pack courtyard, about the laughter, about the specific sound contempt makes when it has never considered that the thing it is dismissing might be listening very carefully and taking very thorough notes. She thought about 400 wolves who had chosen to be here, about a former beta who had walked out of a forest at dawn and sat in the dirt outside her gate and waited, about green walls. All right, she said, and this time she meant it differently. She let herself have it. 30 seconds of sitting in a morning boardroom with the things she'd built and the person across from her and the specific quiet of something that had been worth every single cost. Then she picked up the briefing documents. Tell me about the reallocation timeline, she said. He smiled. Yes, Queen, he said. Outside, the Eastern Territory ran on. Her routes, her network, her 400 wolves who had once been dismissed and had instead been chosen. Nobody was laughing now. The end. Thank you for listening to Moonbound Chronicles, The Queen of Broken Things, a complete werewolf romance audiobook. If this story moved you, subscribe, comment, and share it with someone who deserves a love story built from the ground up. New stories every week on Moonbound Chronicles.